This video is about Neith and the reason why there are no soulmates. Remember the sun. Horus proved himself to be the archetype of Pharaoh, and har-ware, right? Adult male is the word for the meaning for where. So even the Greeks and these other people who came across these ideas, they got it loud and clear. This is the ideal man. This is truly what it means to be a man, is to be a hero in this world and to be prepared to triumph on the highest spiritual level and to put that above everything else. So Neith or Nit, we see no, in, and on as some of the possible translations for the wordplay. Basically, they are the translations, and it goes beyond that, and we're going to keep going. Her name was linked to the root of the word for being and weave. Bow and arrows, or a scepter and an ankh, were some of her symbols. The scepter as opposed to a shield with arrows crossed, or a weaving shuttle. Okay. She was in late times seen as a form of Hathor. Now this is one of the applications of this is big women injecting their view, and there is a link to Thor and authority here. A Thor. Okay. Also author, right? So, basically the people who are telling the story rewrite Horus's role, and often this involves trying to get people like me to settle for bigger women to ultimately break the sun cycle. That's one of the tricks they've done. I pointed out before. To get heroes to settle for big women, obviously, a guy like me isn't really going to want to be with a big woman. He's going to consider mind, body, and soul. That's going to be a big part of his life. He's going to want somebody who is compatible with him and who makes him feel a certain way. And let's face it, if she doesn't take care of herself, why would she want to be with, why would an ideal man want to be with her? Okay, if she doesn't take care of her mind, body, and soul, it's kind of a no-brainer. In this regard, opposites certainly do not attract. Suitable helpers do. So also later on, she took on masculine qualities. Obviously, it was the allies of the Greeks starting to get a rise, and this certainly set the stage for the Greeks to come in. So whenever you see this kind of the dual gender thing merging, which they had Atum and Happy and some other deities earlier on had taken on kind of a kind of gender neutral idea, and qualities of both sexes, okay, androgynous and so on. When you see this, you see the interruption of the divine order. The martial artist, has a connection with the woman. It is these other people who are worldly who inject these ideas into spirituality. These ideas, if anything, should only be allowed for people who are outside of the temple, outside of the spiritual order. This is something for individuals that is frowned upon by society and perhaps even should be banned when you consider this is the reproductive cycle, okay, between a man and a woman in his pure masculine energy and her in her pure feminine energy. And these ideas are meant to be separated. And at the end of the day, none of these ideas, including Neith, should exist as such. They should just be women receiving Pharaoh, and her aspect as a warrior should be celebrated in a manner that cannot be confused with the spiritual process of the reproductive cycle and divinity. Okay. Her name might have been linked to the word for water, nt, right? She therefore is thought to be the mother of the sun god, quote unquote, actually the priest, and the mother of the gods. So when they say things like that, it gets confusing because a lot of this is a Western perspective, and they merge people with gods. And even Osiris himself was said to be based on a king by some, and so there's a lot of confusion here. So when you see the mother of the sun god, what you really see in truth is what really happened is the representative of har-ware, the pharaoh, took Neith as a wife, and his rightful heir was with the woman that he truly loved, and there, in that sense, she brought in the next Horus. And this is before Osiris, Isis, and baby Horus was really accepted, Horus the Younger. The West superimposes their values, like the chi rho, where the P is superimposed on the X. You see Osiris making the sign of the X. There's no P on top of it. On Egyptian mythology, and of course, Serapis, Jesus' image, okay, based on Osiris and Apis, and so that's part of where you get the chi rho, the X. The divine martial art mate, logic, and logos. Neith the cow, okay, who gave birth to Ra. When Neith spat into the waters of Nun, it gave birth to Apep. So you see, when you look at this kind of version of events, she takes on sort of masculine qualities, impregnating the primordial waters of Nun. I go as far as to say that even if the earliest inscriptions in the Temple of Ra recorded this way, it is not a correct way. Ra created himself and created everything else. And you see this with the Igbo religion, where they have it correct. So when you see that the people who are actually the martial art groups that ran, that were there, right, the Great Lakes and the South African and the West African kind of connection, there's no doubt in my mind that the Igbo cosmology, the Igbo interpretation of events is correct. The stars and all this, it doesn't matter, it's bitch shit. It's like saying this paper is divine because I wrote on it. The stars are just a message from God. The sun is superior. Don't be a star that falls out of the sky all the time. Don't follow a star that falls out of the sky. Don't follow planets that are in orbit around the sun, but rather see the true message in the sun, which is the message of God. God does not make everything in the sky equal, nor does he make every person equal. If you worship the stars, okay, and the night, obviously you're not right. All right. Arrows to put evil spirits to rest was a part of Neith, right? So when you look at spirit right there, you have spear, eye, okay? You can't confuse that. She's basically assisting the pharaoh. She's not the archetype of pharaoh. It shouldn't be confused. So if she starts to go against the divine order, it is not justified. Nobody can interpret the will of God, the will of the creator, but the pharaoh. Nobody, even in the later dynasties, they say nobody can claim to truly understand the sun's reproductive cycle but the pharaoh. Therefore, nobody should be interrupting the reproductive cycle that the pharaoh, the rightful pharaoh is explaining, okay, and controlling. All the deities rose to betray Ra, and Har-Wer especially, like Amen and Osiris. That you have to keep that in mind. Her name was written using the hieroglyph, right? Hero, okay, glyph, the lie with the P, right? The hor-o lip, right? The fo-el ro, okay, I-E, right? So we do the wordplay forwards and backwards interchangeable vowels. All right. Of an ejaculating phallus, a strong link to beta male creative energy. So the reason why I say this is a strong link to beta male creative energy is because certainly this is something that really starts to show up later on. And you have men with an erect penis, and you have her symbol is an ejaculating phallus, right? So it is, it is referring to something that is true, right? Her importance is when the pharaoh impregnates her. That's her true importance. Okay. For anybody to say, hey, I can play pharaoh now, that's some bitch shit. I can't respect it in the slightest. I don't respect any attempts to usurp the archetype of pharaoh. That is the naturally chosen direction. As if the creator is no less significant than if the creator had manifested and says, I choose this man and his bloodline to leave humanity. It is no less significant than that. It was definitively chosen through nature. There was no reason to believe that it's not the case. Okay. So therefore, Neith becomes a whore. She's beneath the pharaoh's feet at this point because she does not truly do what she's supposed to do. And of course, in Greek, women were said to be weavers if they're going to be a good Greek housewife, right? You have Athena, and I'll get into that in a later video. who is also the weaver, is one of her roles. Strategic warfare. She's cunning. Look at the story with Arachne, where because she's jealous of a human's ability to weave and exposing the gods in her work when she challenged her, she basically punishes her severely. Okay. So when we look at the Athena cosmology, had the goddess emerging from primeval waters to create the world. Again, false. What basically happens is a bunch of gender-neutral types, LGBT types, whatever you want to call them, kind of the gay community, the feminist community, kind of merging together with a bunch of silly servants, just peasants, just utter cowards, just beta male weaklings. There's no way around this, okay? And they're basically saying that she created the world, right? A woman cannot claim to understand the will of Ra. This is a martial arts order. He penetrates her. Right, her shooting arrows, right, really is symbolic of Re. It's the difference between the source of the force of the sun, the strength of the sun, which is Ra, which is only understood by Haru. And this person saying, she's basically behaving like a silly, drugged up, dumb bitch. And of course, it goes back to a web of deceit, right? Weaving and men, right? Drugging people and how they come together. And you have men and Set and the Scorpion King and so on and so forth. All right, Amenhotep II. He was one bitch, is what I call him, who the fallen knit, molded. So Neith is said to have molded Amenhotep II, right? And that's right there in the word. Amenhotep. Amen, the usurper, the traitor, the Lucifer-like sick idea. So what you're seeing is a battle in the realm of ideas to confuse the people and to enforce these ideas over the people who should have rose up and killed these people. The people themselves prove themselves to be disloyal scum, worms, lowly snakes, unworthy of existence, who should have never accepted an order that did not include Harware. Who are they to serve the enemies of the true idea and the true direction of humanity? The ancient Egyptians, the vast majority of them, were scum. Only in the Old Kingdom, because Horus had exerted power in a way that had to do with the world. That's why he's wearing the, Narmer's wearing the bull tail, and he has, bat on the Narmer palette and the apron and the kilt he's wearing and so on. Okay, the people are cowards, fair weather bitches. They're sniveling scum. They don't deserve to go to the Creator in a state of honor. They never have. Just because Horus happened to, Hardware happened to be in charge, doesn't mean that they helped create that situation. So Dynasty 20, nor does it mean that they would have not served the Scorpion King or some coward. Dynasty 20 had the whore Nit, who illuminated, quote unquote, right, Illuminati illuminated the first face in the 6th century BC as the whore that reinvented birth. So she even reinvents the idea of being born. Of course, there's parallels with being spiritually reborn. So Nit from Zhao was a deity of the hunt and war, wife of Aha, fighter. It means fighter, Mene of the first dynasty. This guy's pronounced name is Aha, Hor Aha, right? Irie Hor. The symbols of some of these guys is the falcon carrying the mace. Okay, that is his most pronounced characteristic, the spirit of righteous indignation through martial arts. If she does anything other than to submit to that spirit, she's a whore, is in defiance, and she's less than a peasant. Her priestesses are less than a peasant, and Athena's priestesses become less than a peasant for that reason. All right, some hand-me-down peasant bitches at that. So it goes back to Marinette, beloved of Nit. Her title's mistress of the bow, ruler of arrows. Okay, goes back to Iunu. I in A, on Heliopolis in an I, protector of the Red Crown. Nit watched over the east side of the sarcophagus and looked over the jackal-headed Duumtif, who guarded the stomach. So again, she becomes this whore who's concerned with, worldly, profane, sacrilegious, demonic reproduction. So when we look at Aha, her eye, her arrow, Haru, the surgical sun speed, God speed, Ra speed strikes won her, and in her most noble form, her only true form, she would stand with him in sickness and in health. In the end, the human race lives in dishonor, disgrace, shame, illness, evil, depravity, decadence, and emptiness. And this goes back to the poisoning of Haru's story that I've gone over. Again, she is the goddess of weaving, the hunt, and of war. So she cannot recognize somebody who doesn't have the divine spirit of warfare in them. And when she does, she's a whore. And why should we say it any other way? To give the later versions of Neith credit is to take away from the true essence, the true spiritual continuity and significance of the wife of Narmer. Thank you.